very nice. However, we're now going to spend the next daf actually on esrogin. Why esrogin? Says the Gemara, 2 lines up. Tonu Rabbanon. Maaser b'Rabbi Akiva. Now, if I was to ask you, gentlemen, what is an esrog? Is it a fruit? It is a vegetable? What would you say?
Fruit.
Thank you, sir. Peter's going for fruit. We won't take a vote on this, but we'll see how this works out. Yeah, we're not deciding is it a fruit or a vegetable. Now that's going to be important. Why is that important? Let's have a look. You're saying it's a fruit. So 1 minute.
Well, it's pre-8 soto. It's obviously a fruit, isn't it?
It's it's called a pre. Yes.
Eight soto.
Yes. Although we said before that it depends. Are you irrigating? How are you irrigating? Is it done by hand, or is it just relying solely on in the bulk on rainwater? It's midrabanan taking the trumas and maasros on esrogim. But how are they going to classify it? Okay. Before we go any further, what happened here? So to start with, you seem to be correct. Peter, Mervyn, everybody seems to be right. But look what happened here. Maaser happened. B'Rabbi Akiva. Sheliket esrog be'echod bishvat. Just 1 minute. What's he done here? He's liket esrog be'echod bishvat. He's cut down the esrog on the 1st of Shvat. Okay. Rashi just says, when it says esrog, it means a fruit of the esrog tree. Fine. And what did he do for trumas and maasros? V'nohag by shnei isurim. He took 2/10. What do you mean 2/10? He behaved with it in 2 ways. Says that, look at the last Rashi. Shnei esronim. Maaser sheni b'shona shniya or maaser oni b'shona shlishis. This was going from the 2nd to the 3rd year.
So it's a vegetable.
Ah. So it sounds like it's a vegetable. So 1 minute, if it's a vegetable, then what are you saying? It depends when it's plucked rather than when you get the budding. Okay, let's see. So he took 2. Maaser oni b'shona shlishis, shahoyso shniya nichneses li shlishis. It was the 2nd going into the 3rd. What does that mean? Remember the 6-year cycle? Well, it's a 7-year, you've got Shemitah coming up. The first 2 years out of the 6 before you get to Shemitah, you take Maaser Sheni, you take it to Yerushalayim. In the 3rd year, you take Maaser Oni. And then the same happens to 4, 5, 6. Year 4 and 5, you take Maaser Sheni, which means you take a 10th of the crop and you take it to Yerushalayim or you redeem it. In the 3rd year and the 6th year, instead of doing that, you give that 10th away to the poor. That's called Maaser Oni. Now, if you're going from the 2nd year to the 3rd year, it's quite important you know, well, besides the fact that, of course, they've got to be, if you pluck them, you've got to make sure which year you are. But here there's something very important. If it was going from year 1 to year 2 and you did all your plucking at one time, so then that's very easy. You take your trumas and maasros. If it's year 1 and 2, And you know there's going to be Maser Sheni there. But if it's going from the second to the third, you don't know whether that Maser you've taken is yours, or does it go to the poor? So what he did, it's going across to Bishvat, and he took Maser twice. What do you mean he took it twice? Well, turn the page, gentlemen. This is very interesting. Echod kedivrei beis Shammai, ve'echod kedivrei beis Hillel. He plucked it on the first of, we said in the first of Shvat, yeah? According to Beis Shammai, that's the new year. Although we're talking about plucking, it's interesting. There's something going wrong here. We're talking about plucking, but nevertheless, we seem to be focusing on the dates, or the Gemara, that's what the Brisa says. We seem to be focusing and calling it a tree and looking at the dates, whether it's before Tu B'Shvat or after Tu B'Shvat. Again, according to Beis Shammai, the Rosh Hashanah Le'ilonos is the first of Shvat. So therefore, when he takes it, if it's going from the second to the third, I'm now in my third year, and therefore the 10th I take should be given to the poor. According to Beis Hillel, I've not yet got into my third year, I'm still in my second year. This second year produce, I should take my Maser Sheni, and I have to take it up to Yerushalayim. So it sounds like, although there's lots of confusion here, he was taking it based on plucking, mind, but still considering, and he was unsure whether it's Beis Shammai or Beis Hillel, which is another problem. Don't we normally paskin like Beis Hillel? Have a look at the top line of Rashi. So he took one Maisa according to Beis Shammai, top line, She'omru nischadsha shana, the year has already renewed itself. What do you mean it's renewed itself? Because the first of Shvat is the Rosh Hashanah, according to Beis Shammai. Ukava nichneses shlishis mishechashecha. Once it got dark on that first, so we're going right into Rosh Chodesh Shabbat, it is now the new year. If it's now going from the second to the third year, Rashi top line, thank you very much, Peter. As it's gone now into the third year, it's now third year crop. But he also took Echod Kedivrei Beis Hillel. He also took a tenth according to the view of Beis Hillel. Ha'omrim, who say, Lo nischadsha shana ad chamisha osaboi. The new year is only starting at the 15th, right? So that's why he's taking two Maseres. One Maser for him, which will be Maser Sheni, according to Beis Hillel, and that he will have to take up to Yerushalayim or redeem and take to Yerushalayim. But he can't let the poor, wouldn't be fair for the poor. So according to Beis Shammai, he took a tenth as well and gave that away to the poor so that he could tick the box according to Beis Shammai. There are quite a few problems here, and we've hit 9 o'clock or hitting 9 o'clock. What are the problems? Number one, it seems to be his plucking. Doesn't it depend on when it actually started to bud? That's number one. And even if you'll tell me that it does depend on plucking for some reason, even though it's a fruit, why is he behaving like Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? Now, don't forget, this is a brisa. So in other words, at the time of the brisa, there were followers of Beis Shammai and followers of Beis Hillel. they normally would follow one or the other. And if they didn't follow one or the other, we know the general rule would be you'd paskin like Beis Hillel. So why are they taking both? What we need to look at, and that's going to be a fascinating piece in itself, can you paskin like two people l'chumra? And we're talking here not just like two people, these are two tanoim, or are you always meant to stick to one? You've got one rabbi, you stick to him. Or can you go and be machmir like two rabbonim? If you are a member and your rabbi says something, should you, is what we're seeing here, take the chumrah of another rabbi if your rabbi is whoever he happens to be? So we got problems here that we need to solve. Why are we paskening like both? Number two, why it seems to be it's a fruit. If it's a fruit tree, it should be budding, which is important. What's the plucking coming in here? And that's something we need to be considering. And the Gemara will deal with this point. Can you pasken like two? In other words, can you have two rabbis? You could say pasken like rabbis for to be more lenient. Here we're pasken like two rabbis to be strict. Is that the correct thing to do? Or should you say, this is my rabbi, I follow whatever he says? That's a very interesting point, and this is the source of that Gemara, whether you can follow two rabbis. I have seen there's a website, not sure where it is, where you can do it the other way around. You have a shaila, and you want to be makel, you want to be lenient about it, so you can put in the shaila, and then it will come up with the rabbi who is lenient on this topic. If you like that type of thing. I won't tell you about this site, but it's wonderful. So in other words, yeah, whatever subject you've got, can you tell me a rabbi who's lenient about this, please? And you'll find some rabbi somewhere, which is that the right thing to do? It would sound like not. We'll see our Gemara. Or do you just have a rabbi, whoever your rabbi is, assuming he's got the certification as the rabbi, and therefore you stick with him. But what's this business of paskening l'chumra both ways, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel? Besides the fact we've got Beis Hillel here, and we generally pasken like Beis Hillel anyway. So what is
do we say sometimes, Norman, you want to be yotzes on l'chol hadeot?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And so therefore, it's not so irrational.
No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So on top of the only question against that is it's Beis Hillel here. We always pasken like Beis Hillel, and if you are a follower of Beis Shammai, you're going to pasken like Beis Hillel as well. Okay, you're right. You're touching good points here. Do you follow chumras both ways or kulas? But that's something we need to develop in the next piece of Gemara. So very good indeed. Before we close, if we can, Peter, just bring up Safaria again. Have a quick, if we can go to Shemos, just before we close. Go to, you expected Psalms. We'll get to, actually this time it's going to be, go to Exodus, up Exodus. There you go, Exodus 12, chapter 12. Famous, as we saying goodbye, Posuk 17, I think. 12:17. Yes. Shmartem es hamatzos. Just to conclude with this, a beautiful Rashi I want to share with you, as we're meant to be learning a bit of Nach, certainly a Zechus for Basya Bas Chava. Have a look at this down, Shmartem es hamatzos, which means you should observe the feast of unleavened bread. Shmartem, very interesting. What's it mean, Shmartem es hamatzos? Press that, please, and we'll get the commentaries up on that posuk. Commentary, up. Go for Rashi. Go to the Aleph. Let's have it in Hebrew first. The Aleph. Shmartem es hamatzos. Look after the matzos. So the normal translation is Shelo yoboyu lidei chimutz. They shouldn't become chometz. Become normal once it starts to expand keep it cold, keep the dough cold to ensure it won't actually won't rise. Fine. Now I want to look at this Rabbi Yoshia. In a moment we'll look at the English. Rabbi Yoshia Omer Alti, very famous statement as I know we're into ER already, but as saying goodbye to Pesach, says Rabbi Yoshia, Alti Kores Amat. Don't forget the Torah, there are no vowels. A famous statement. Of course, that word can be read El Es HaMitzvos. You could read that word mitzvos. You with me? Just like you're very careful to not allow the matzah to become chometz, to become leavened. If it comes to your hand, asay oiso miyad. You can now press the A button on top. We'll have that in English for you. Just come down to Rabbi Josiah. No, one up. I think we're in, try. Here we go. Yes. Rabbi Josiah. Well, the first part of that Rashi tells us, as we saw, scrolled up, scroll. Can we see it? Bit more, up, a bit more. Yeah. Wait, what's happened? A bit more. I've lost it. Bit more. Yeah, stop. So the first part, that it should, in other words, watch, look after, guard the matzahs, that it shouldn't reach a stage of becoming leavened. Hence the Rabbi said, if the dough is rising, yeah, the whoever's doing the kneading, add cold water. That's the first part. The shmartim, look after the matzahs, guard the matzahs, rather than just observe the festival. Guard the matzahs to make sure, look after them to make sure they don't become chometz. But this is the bit I want to look at. Rabbi Josiah said, do not read es hamatzvos, but es hamitzvos. Just as we may not cause the unleavened bread to become leavened by letting the dough remain in its raw state too long, so we may not let the commandment become leavened by waiting too long before we perform it. If a commandment comes, you'll perform it immediately. This idea of zrizim makdimin the mitzvahs, this is where we're learning it from. In other words, a mitzvah comes your way, get on with it. Similarly, it's attending, those people remember attending shul or attending anything else, make sure you're there on time. This zrizus is fundamental. Very interesting. Is it that important that we've got to make such a fuss about doing a mitzvah with this zrizus? And you see from here, heard from various people speak on this, from Zimmerman, and plenty of people have spoken this point, that it's very different. A mitzvah which is, of course, a mitzvah which is done, and the tick's done, the mitzvah's done. But if a mitzvah is done with this zrizus, it's a totally different type of mitzvah. Not only that, it shows how keen you are, this passion that you've got for mitzvahs. Now, I just want to share with you, and we'll stop with that. If we can now turn to Shiur Shiurim. So if you go to the top three line, yeah, thank you. Go down, roll down. To go to Tanakh and go to Shiur Shiurim. Fascinating Rashi in Shiur Shiurim. Here we go, Song of Songs. And go to chapter 7, please. And it's Pasuk 6, I think. Yes. Don't forget the whole of Shiur Shiurim. It's you've got to understand the words first, but of course it is the comparison of Klal Yisrael to God. Roshei Cholech. Look at the last three words. Melech Osur Bar Hotim. Hard words to translate. Melech, a king held captive, Osur, bound, Bar Hotim, tresses. Tresses is normally a word we mean like hair, long hair. Have a look now at Rashi commentary. The normal translation is talking about, yes, one more, further down, a bit more. Melech Osur Bar Hotim. Rahotim means tresses of hair. In other words, there's this connection that people have. They want to become a nozer, cutting themselves off only for a short period, but that gives this kesher, this linking that a person wants to link up together with Rohotim, as Rashi says, coming down Rohotim, Kurno Balaz, if you're into the French. Things which are bound together. Here it's talking about the hair. They're bound together as the Nazir would be with his long hair. That itself brings you this connection to the king, somebody who does want to cut themselves off for a short amount of time because they feel they need to pull themselves closer to spiritual matters. So they're becoming a Nazir. Now, but what I want to share with you, keep going, is this Dova Acher. Dova Acher in this Rashi. Melech Osur Borohotim. Have you got it? I'm doing the Rashi. No, you move the arrow to, down, down, down. There we are. Down, down, down. The arrow. There we are. Melech Osur Borohotim. Got it? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you got the arrow, keep coming down the arrow. Be there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nikshar. There's the Osur bound. Ba'ava b'mitzvahs u'beritzus she'atem rotzim lefonav. Please press the A button. And we'll have that in English. And I just want to come down this Quran. Here we are. Another explanation of your king is bound in tresses. The Holy One, blessed be he, is bound with love to you through your fulfillment of his commandments and through the swiftness. I don't know if you're familiar with the word in Aramaic, when Aramaic and Hebrew linked up, rohotim, which means swiftness, with which you run before him. So if you want to have this particular kesher, you want this bound, to be bound in love with Hashem, the idea of fulfilling mitzvahs with this rohotim. So melech also bound borohotim, meaning through doing things with here we're talking about through the swiftness with which you run before him, that shows the connection, how you're bound with love to him. So very interesting. That Rashi is clearly linking up to what we saw with the Shematim es hamatzos, Shematim es hamitzvos. If a mitzvah comes your way, do it immediately. And by doing that, you're showing your passion to the mitzvahs and the love that you have for the mitzvahs and towards Hashem. We can go back, thank you very much, Peter, back to people. So, I see what we see. Why I'm mentioning those two psukim, they're going beautifully together. And Pastor, we're taking messages from Pesach. This was just like be very careful, because if you allow the matzah just beyond this 18-minute, you'll end up being chometz. Similarly, mitzvahs that come your way, make sure they are done with that speed, showing that you're keen to do that mitzvah. And with that, again, you're showing your love. You can't compare mitzvah which is done with this speed, this swiftness, than a mitzvah which is done without that speed. So that's the Shmatim es ha-mitzvahs, Shmatim es ha-matzahs, Rabbi Yeshaya, worth taking with us, mitzvahs that come to get an opportunity. Mitzvah bo liyotcha al tachmitzena. Don't make it chometzdik. Don't make mitzvahs chometzdik. And certainly we can take that lesson with us as we move from Pesach onwards. So with that, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Simon. And thank you, everybody. We've got Mark with us as well. Good to see you. And with that, gentlemen, I hope we'll meet next week, all being well.